We've already talked about a product rule for radicals. We said when you have the same index, you can multiply the radicands under the same root sign. So that means here for this question, I would have the square root of 10 times the square root of 5 equal to the square root of 10 times 5, or the square root of 50, which I hope you recognize can be simplified. If we prime factor 50, we see that the index is 2, and I have 2 factors of 5 that we can take out. This simplifies to equal 5 root 2. Now you see right beside it, I have the same question, because I want to suggest to you that it's easier to prime factor before you multiply. So instead of writing the square root of 50, I'm going to prime factor 10, 2 times 5, and then write down my 5 from my square root of 5. Okay, so I've got 10 here, and then the root of 5 here. You can see I've skipped the first 2 steps of my question there. Now I can see there are 2 factors of 5 that can be taken out. This simplifies to 5 root 2. I know what some of you are thinking. Well, it's just as easy to get 50 and prime factor. That's why we have question 2 here. I don't want to multiply 14 times 21 and then prime factor a number that's going to be over 200. Prime factoring 14, however, is not that difficult. That's 2 times 7. And 21, that's 3 times 7. I'm just going to put my 7s together here, though. So now you see I have 14 here. I have 21 here. I didn't have to multiply 14 by 21. And I see my index is 2. I have 2 factors that are the same. I can take them out. This gives me 7 times the square root of 6. Pause your video, try question 3. So you can see here I've prime factored 35, 7 times 5. I've prime factored 20, 2 times 2 times 5. Now I can see when I look at this, I have 2 factors of 5 I can take out and 2 factors of 2 I can take out. 5 times 2 is 10 and a root of 7 left. Pause your video, do question 4. So we prime factored 42, 2 times 3 times 7. We prime factored 28, 2 times 2 times 7. And now we see we have 2 factors of 7 we can take out and 2 factors of 2. 2 times 7 is 14, and there's the root of 6 left. Make sure you practice these. This ability to understand how to play with the numbers, how to do the questions in an easier way is very important to your understanding of how numbers work, how radicals work, how simplifying works. We want to extend the product rule a little bit. We're going to talk about multiplying where we have integers and radicals. So m and n are real numbers, a and b are real numbers, but notice that we have numbers outside of the radical sign and numbers inside the radical sign. We can multiply the numbers outside together. We can multiply the numbers inside together. Be careful about that. People sometimes get confused if they haven't practiced enough. So we multiply the numbers outside of the radical sign. We multiply the numbers inside the radical sign. So let's look at question 1. We have numbers outside and we have numbers inside. If it helps you to color code them before you start, then do it. Do whatever makes this work for you. 2 times 3 is 6. Root 7 times root 2, there's nothing I can simplify there. 7 and 2 are both prime numbers. All I can do is multiply them, and I know they can't be simplified any further. Try question 2. We have numbers outside the radical sign. We have numbers inside the radical sign. 4 times 5 is 20. Root 3 times root 11, root 33. And again, those were both prime numbers. We can't simplify them any further. Now, when I look at the root of 12 and the root of 75, that tells me I can simplify. So here's what I would suggest. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply the integers outside of the radical sign. -3 times 2 is -6. Now I'm going to prime factor. 12, 2 times 2 times 3, 75, 3 times 5 times 5. I don't want to multiply 12 times 75, far too much work. It's easier to prime factor. Now look, the index is 2. I have 2 factors of 2 I can take out, 2 factors of 3 I can take out, 2 factors of 5 I can take out. So we have -6 multiplying 2 times 3 times 5. Of course, the easiest way to multiply this is 2 times 5 is 10, 3 times 6 is 18, 10 times 18, 180, and of course, it's negative. Why don't you pause the video, try question 4. So I multiplied the integers in front, 2 times 4 is 8, and then I prime factored 15 in the green, I prime factored 30 in the yellow. I'm going to rewrite those factors just to make it easier for you to see. I'm going to group my numbers together. So there's 1, 2, 2 3s, and 2 5s. Now I can clearly see I have 2 factors of 3 I can take out, 2 factors of 5 I can take out. 8 times 5 is 40, times 3, 120, leaving the square root of 2. Pause your video, try questions 3 and 6. Did you remember that this is multiplication? 5 multiplying -3 gives me -15. I prime factored 22. I prime factored 10. Now I see that there are 2 factors of 2 that I can take out. 2 times -15, -30, leaving 11 times 5, or the square root of 55. What about 6 times the root of x all squared? Remember, the 2 is beside the bracket. That means we're multiplying everything in the bracket by itself 2 times. Again, we can multiply the integers outside. 6 times 6 is 36. And we know what the root of x times the root of x is. We had that property we talked about, a couple of lessons ago, that equals x. Again, practice these before moving on to the next lesson.